Mr. Vegas, on this firming requirement, it seems a little bit like an upside-down capacity market in that we're not paying people to have power we're not using. We're penalizing people for not having power that we might use. Is that a fair assessment?
It's kind of if a capacity market offers a carrot to generators by giving them revenue for having a certain amount of capacity available, a firming requirement would be a stick that would essentially tax resources that don't meet a certain level of performance or a certain level of capacity. And so there's a potential risk when you employ a stick into an economic model, then resources that are close to a economic edge could be pushed over that edge as a result of having to bear an additional cost. And because as it's contemplated in the statute, I think the firming requirement that it applies to intermittent, dispatchable, and load equally, it could have that effect on any type of resource that is close to an economic edge if it has to bear another cost burden that it may not be able to do so economically and therefore would pull out of the market.
So this could be older wind farms, it could be older steam plants.
It could, yes. It could create an energy kind of valley at the outset until the longer-term intent of it comes into play.
What do you mean an energy valley?
An energy, meaning we would lose energy resources in the short term. So resources that cannot be economic under the new cost burden that's put in place would pull out of the market, so we would have an energy deficit from that until we would see the longer-term effects of energy, of new supply being built based on the revenues created from the firming costs.
Right, and if there are additional costs imposed, I'm not sure from your testimony whether we're saying that the generators are going to bear that cost or whether it's going to ultimately be passed on to consumers anyway.
Effectively, in the energy market, all of the costs flow down to consumers. And so if there is a higher cost imposed on intermittence, as an example, and they have to firm up to a certain level, they will change their bidding tactics in order to incorporate that variable cost. That would then raise the cost of the energy market, and everybody pays for that.
I see, especially when someone exits. You have greater scarcity and therefore higher prices and therefore higher consumer costs.
That would be a follow-on market action that could raise prices as well. But just adding any cost into the energy market directly, it has to get paid for by somebody. And so generators pass all of their variable cost into the market. They bid that in. And so the market then would pass that down to the consumers who pay for the energy.
So firming requirements are essentially introducing, I don't want to say a tax, I don't want to use those tactics, but a cost. Is that the most efficient way for us to get new dispatchable generation, or should we just send that cost straight to new generation?
I don't think it's the most efficient way to incentivize dispatchable generation. I think some of the other ideas that have been proposed, and the PCM is one that we've talked a lot about, it's very focused on generating or passing the revenues directly to those resources that are performing during scarce periods on the grid. And so I think that's a more efficient way to move dollars from where they're going to be paid from to where they're going to go to the resources, versus having a general kind of a tax that some of it will end up in the energy market and flow its way down. Some of it will go to generators that will provide the firming service, but I don't think it's as efficient a way as what's being contemplated in other models that are out there like PCM.
So in the firming, you've got this diffusion of dollars turning into pennies going to a lot of different places, whereas in the PCM, we're directly requiring load-serving entities to make sure that there's power available to their customers.
I think that's correct. And there's another very important point, I think, around what's being talked about, and that is all of this is around trying to make the system more reliable. And so the one of the underlying principles in PCM is that at the end.
Go ahead. I'm going to ask one question. I am now.
You bet. One of the underlying principles is that load-serving entities will carry an obligation to meet the energy needs of their customers. That doesn't exist today. That's a new concept. A firming requirement doesn't create that obligation for load-serving entities to meet the energy needs of their customers. So that's a very principled change that would enhance and force a reliability model inside of the market. And so that, coupled with getting then the dollars directly to those types of resources to meet the reliability standard, is, I think, a combination that's a very effective and reliable combination.
I hope everyone could hear that through the annoying
Right,
buzzing.
Just